Hey, breast friends, are you struggling to figure out if it's time to start pumping or not? If so, stick around because I'm going to give you 3 reasons why it might be time. All right, so there are 1,000 reasons that one might start pumping early in their breastfeeding journey. But I'm going to give you 3 that I feel like are kind of overlooked a lot of times, especially by other healthcare workers, because there's this old saying or old rule of thumb that you shouldn't start pumping until you're at least 6 weeks postpartum, or else you'll end up with an oversupply and you're going to be miserable and there's going to be milk everywhere. Um, but I just don't find that that's great advice anymore. So 3 common reasons that you might want to start pumping. The first one is that you've introduced a bottle. Now, there are a lot of reasons that you might introduce a bottle. Your baby could be in the position where they just need some supplement. They're not gaining weight very well, or they're just not feeding super well at the breast. They've got concerns at the pediatrician appointments. So if you're going to introduce a bottle, start pumping. I see it all the time that moms are told, well, just give a bottle until your milk comes in. Well, the thing that makes your milk come in is your baby being at the breast. So if you're not stimulating the breast, it's not going to come in. You're going to have low supply, and it's a lot harder to correct it the longer that goes on. So my rule of thumb is that if you're giving your baby a bottle, pump in place of that bottle. So if your baby gets 2 bottles a day, pump 2 times a day, ideally at the same time as they're getting that bottle. The second reason is that you've had a history of chronic low supply with other babies. Now, this wouldn't necessarily be the mom who had low supply due to like medications that she was on during a previous breastfeeding journey, or there was an undiagnosed tongue tie and that led to low supply, things like that. But if you were doing all of the things right during your last breastfeeding journey and the milk just wasn't flowing, I would recommend starting to pump very soon after birth, because if your body's natural proclivity is just to not produce a ton of milk, if we can push you into oversupply, that might get you closer to a more typical range of milk production. But you would definitely want to be working with a lactation consultant if you're going to do that. The last reason is if you've had a breast reduction. I see it all the time. Moms come in, they have had a breast reduction or sometimes even implants, and they're like, yeah, my surgeon said I wouldn't have any issues breastfeeding. Um, that's not true. That's terrible advice. I would never tell someone not to get a breast reduction. Um, I've heard how horrible it can be to have that weight on your chest. So you don't necessarily need to think about that if you're trying to decide whether or not you want the surgery, but just know that there's a good possibility that your milk supply will be impacted if you do go on to have babies and you want to feed them from your body. And kind of the same reasoning behind this last one as the second one that I mentioned about having chronic low supply, is that since we are removing actual mammary tissue from the breast, if we can push the rest of the mammary tissue into oversupply, you're going to have more milk. And so you'll get a little bit closer to your goal if your goal is to have a full milk supply. Again, there I could keep going. This list could go on and on for days on reasons that you might want to start pumping. But if you fall into any of these categories and you are hesitant on whether or not you should start pumping. Call an IBCLC and build a really good plan. But at least if you start pumping, you can protect your supply, hopefully promote a stronger supply. And then by working with a lactation consultant, you can kind of tamper down if you do get too far into oversupply territory. But I find most moms who start pumping, when they fall into one of these categories, they have more success. They're happier with their breastfeeding journey. As always, if you have questions, you can drop them in the comments below, or you can reach out for an appointment. Bye.